All right, so this is the lecture for class 04 of the web design class. All right, so here we go. The design process. Okay, so yeah, these are things we're covering. So design process. The very first thing you need to do with any project, whether it be web design, graphic design, animation, business model, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter the industry. You should research because basically knowledge is power. I mean, that cliche is totally true. Okay. Now for web design, when you're making things, you're making it for the masses. Okay. So the first thing you need to think about is the target audience. Who are you making this for? Okay. And in this case, it's two things. It's both the client and also the users. All right. So the client's actually the person you're making it for. Is this a small business? Is it a large business? Is it for your personal, your own personal thing? Is it a business at all? What's the budget? Does it have a large budget? Because if it has a large budget, then you could potentially have, a bunch of people, working on this. If it's a small budget, then you might have to do something a little more CMS oriented and you just have like pre-made template things. The users, okay, that varies greatly. So obviously the age of who is looking at this. So if you know it's going to be a site for older people, maybe senior citizens or something, they're going to be looking at the site on a computer. Okay, so you need to make sure that it reads on there. It's highly unlikely that they'll be using a cell phone. So they're going to be obviously looking at that. Also, the kind of websites they're going to be on are generally going to be more less for entertainment purposes and more for specific things like banking or I don't know, maybe businesses related, purchasing, things like that. Okay, so age has a huge factor. If you're making something for little kids, obviously, you make little bubbly letters and you make it look whatever. If you're making something for someone older, you're typically going to make it, more kind of straight, and maybe even kind of look sort of like older websites. Gender has some effect. It doesn't have to be a huge effect. Honestly, I think it probably matters more in regards to if you're doing children's things or preteens or young adults where they're trying to be hip, I'm using quotes, that would obviously have some effect. Nationality, obviously that would have a huge effect because basically that might change what the language is. There might be certain things that phrases and things that maybe they don't understand, or certain ones that they would use that we would not, things of that sort. Income can make a difference. It sounds stupid, but even the income can make a difference of how much can you put in your website, because if they have a lower income, more than likely their internet speed is going to be lower, and so you have to compensate for that. The occupation, if you're making a website about medical stuff, if it's doctors looking at it, then that's great. You can make it, really specific. But if you're doing, your average layman, then obviously you're gonna have to put things in different terms and make it appear differently. The computer use and device, I mean, those seem kind of obvious. All right. The purpose or motivation for the site. All right. So what's the purpose of it? Is it entertainment? That's a very large one these days. I mean, I think that might be the largest one at this point. That wasn't always the case. Is it personal? Again, are you making your own? It's for a business. Are you going to be needing technologies in order for people to purchase things from carts, or is it a storefront so that people know where to get, or maybe they're going to order food or something like that? Is it a service? Does it provide some sort of, maybe even information, things like that? So, you look at my site, obviously, and my age range is quite large. The purpose of it is obviously education, so it's more or less information. It should be generally American, although I do get I have a lot of hits from like other countries, so I don't know what they're doing on here. And these are motivation. Are they on the site to do research? Are they looking for news, weather, or updates? Obviously that takes a different kind of technology that has to constantly regenerate the content. Is it for commentary? You know what I mean? Is it like a blog kind of thing? It's a social, do you have to have connections to, Facebook or Twitter or any of those other things? or again, entertainment. You know what I mean? Are they going in there just to view the stuff? Okay. So once you kind of answer some of these questions and you get a good idea of what your target audience is, like where you're trying to, who you're trying to please, you need to kind of make a plan. Okay. So the two things you generally do is you create a sitemap and a wireframe. Okay. So the sitemap is pretty simple. Basically, what it is, it's just, I don't have a picture. I suck. Basically, it's just the idea that you, how all the pages are connected together. Okay, so it's just like a flow chart sort of thing. Very similar to other programming. You know, so generally speaking, you'll have a home page, and then the home page might have sub pages. So, for instance, might have about, contact, articles, shop, and then underneath those, they could have sub pages as well. So you could have like underneath like shop, maybe like there's things to purchase, and so you could say, you know, gifts or cards or blah blah blah. And those are all things that are subcategories to that. Okay, so it's basically just the tree of how someone would navigate throughout your site. The wireframe is basically the a boxed out general look of what the page specifically, like each page would look. Okay, so typically what you do is you start with the home page, because the home page is the page to which all the other pages are usually compared and derived from. So, you know, like where are you going to put the logo, and you know, what's the navigation going to look like, where do you want that to be, and where, you know, is there going to be a banner or a call to action? That's a really big one these days. It's like the number one thing. Articles, are there going to be articles throughout it? Just basically how you're going to lay it out as though it were just a printed page, and you just box out each little individual part. Okay. So construction, so once you get that done, is you create the actual thing of it. First, usually what I do is I try to find a template. Now, you might be like, well, that's cheating. It's not really, because some of these templates are very vague, and they're merely just a understructure where they don't actually give you where things are. They just give you a system of placing them. So there's the grid, the 960 fixed width grid. Basically, it just takes everything and cuts it into 12 chunks, 12 columns, and then you just determine the number of rows. Bootstrap is the same thing, except it's responsive. WordPress is actually what I'm using here, and WordPress has a bunch of different what do they call them? I can't think of the name of it. Themes that you can purchase. A lot of them have like custom things you can put in there, or they'll have plugins that you can use in order to help you lay out the stuff. So like that would be something. There's generally just templates. You can go online and find like just HTML, CSS templates where it's already laid out, like something like this, and you just put in your content. And there's consumer CMSs, content management systems, which is technically what WordPress is as well. So like Squarespace has one, GoDaddy, if you use Wix. A lot of the free ones, they'll give you something and you just kind of, it's all WYSIWYG, and you just drag it and drop it where you want. Now, besides the template thing, you also have to think about the technologies that you're going to be using. So depending on what you need to do, what your website, the purpose of it is, you might need more or less. So generally speaking, you're pretty much always going to be using HTML, CSS, and more than likely JavaScript. Now these other ones like PHP or MySQL or Ruby on Rails, and there's a whole slew of them, you may or may not need depending on what you're developing. So WordPress uses PHP, okay, and MySQL. But we're not going to get into those anyway. But these are more like developer end. This is back end stuff. But what are you going to need in order to develop what you're looking for? Okay. And there's different web design programs to think about. So there's Dreamweaver or any text editor, or you know, there's Adobe Animate if you're trying to make some animated content, things like that. Okay, so you have to think about all those things that you're going to do. So the primary technology, text editor we're going to be using, we've been using just TextEdit, I think, but there's also other ones, and you can use whatever you like. It could be, like I use Sublime Text, there's Notepad++, JS. I mean, there's a whole ton of them. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can do research and find which ones you think work the best. But the nice thing is with HTML, CSS, you're literally just coding. So all the whatever program you use is just going to help facilitate the coding. Some of them have some other built-in things that make it a little bit easier to work with for the class, because it's the main professional program that is used. It's the industry standard. We're going to be using Dreamweaver. Okay. So Adobe Dreamweaver basically is a proprietary web development tool created by Macromedia, but that was acquired by Adobe. So it's part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. basically it allows you to write the code, and it helps when you write it. So Adobe Dreamweaver, so you can see it here. Yay! So we can do, I'm just going to show you. If you click on new, you can choose HTML. But you can see it has starter templates here. So like here's a basic layout, sample grid, simple grid, single page, some bootstrap examples. Okay, it has all sorts of different templates and things that you can use. Responsive starters. Okay, we're not doing that because we're gonna do everything by hand because we learn better that way. But you can click on new document, and you can choose to do bootstrap or not. We're not going to for this. And we'll just call this Dream. Oops. Actually, we'll just call it. Yeah, wait. This is the title. So Dreamweaver intro. Okay. Document types HTML5. You can choose the other ones, but that's what we do. We're not going to attach any specific CSS at the moment because we're going to embed it on our own. And then we'll hit create. And it's going to create this guy here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just do view. I like to do it vertical. So let me see. View mode. Where are you? Split. Here we go. Split. And I want to do split vertical. Okay. Ah, crap. That's backwards. Remind me. Okay. Basically, what it'll do right off the bat, as you can see, it already wrote some of the stuff for me, which is pretty sweet. Okay. It has a lot of automated things built into it. You can also go to, window and go to, or I'm sorry, site, and we will do, where are you? I thought it was there, site, new site, manage site, site options, tools, insert view, edit. Sorry, it took me a while to find it. One of the difficult things with Adobe CC, the Creative Cloud, is that they don't so much create new things as what they do is they just move them. So it used to be underneath Site. There used to be a thing over here, but they moved it now to File. I don't know why they do this stuff, but just go to Page Properties, and so File, Page Properties. It used to be underneath Site. And this will allow you to quickly put in like your defaults of everything, which is pretty cool. Okay, so appearance CSS. So page font, I can choose default, which basically means it's going to let the web browser choose, which is generally not a good idea. So I'm just going to choose like Baskerville, we'll say, and then I can choose normal as the default, and then we'll just do normal. Okay, this way, no matter what pages, what browser you're using, it's always going to look that way. And the default we'll set to 14. Text color, I'll make sure it's black. Background color, we'll just set to white. Actually, I think I would rather not do that. Let's delete that. Background image, I can use a background image here, which you can put right in. And then afterwards, you can choose whether to repeat it or no repeat. I'm not going to do that right now, but if you did have that. Margins, I like to just put in zeros right off the bat. So that way there's no, nothing's added to it superficially. Even if like you like when it has a little bit, I would still put like, you know, like 10 pixels or something like that. Don't let the browser do it because it'll be different based on each one. Okay. So notice we do CSS first, then we do HTML. You'll see that HTML actually has a lot of the same attributes. It's better to do it in CSS than the HTML. So again, I'm going to look at the stuff and there's nothing in here. Okay. So you can see here like the text, visited links, active links, and links. And then they also have the CSS version. So I don't think there's anything in here that I really need to do. So I'm only going to worry about the CSS part, okay? So link font will do the same as page. Size is the same. So I can do link color. And we'll just go ahead and I'm just going to do kind of like a dark, like we'll do a mid gray, okay? Visited links, I'm going to make those like a dark gray. Active links, we'll do those as a lighter gray. And I'm going to do the same thing for the rollover links. Okay. Underline style, I don't like the underline. So I'm going to go ahead and do never underline. Headings, I can choose the difference for each one of these. Title stuff, tracing image, that's all fine. Just hit apply and OK. And you'll see it already put in the a style. I'm just going to period this out. Inside of the head, and it already added all those things. And we didn't even have to write those in. Okay, which is nice. And that's one of the major benefits of Dreamweaver, and I'll kind of get into it again in the next video.